The sound of the latch clanking open echoed louder than it should have. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was the fact that after 2 years of construction delays, zoning fights, and sleepless nights, I was finally opening the gates to my pride and joy. Blue Haven, a private swim facility I built from the ground up on the edge of Willow Ridge. The sun reflected off the rippling water, pristine and silent. No kids yet, no laughter. Just me, a clipboard, and the crisp scent of chlorine. That's when I heard her voice, sharp, nasal, unmistakably entitled. "Excuse me, this area is for residents only." I turned to see a woman in her late 50s, blonde helmet hair stiff under a floral visor, stomping across the freshly poured concrete like she owned it, which she didn't. "Good morning," I said, remaining polite. "Can I help you?" "You can help yourself by leaving before I call the authorities. This pool was not approved by the HOA. You're trespassing." I blinked. "Ma'am, I own the pool. And the land. This isn't HOA property," she scoffed. "This entire zone is part of Willow Ridge Estates. It's in our jurisdiction. I'm HOA Vice President Karen Billings, and I don't recognize you." There it was. The full Karen reveal. I nodded slowly, unlocking the second gate. "That's probably because I'm not in your HOA. This lot isn't part of Willow Ridge. I bought it independently before your expansion vote failed. That vote was invalidated. It's under dispute. Only because you lost," I said with a calm smile. Her eyes narrowed. She reached into her tote and pulled out a folded, smudged paper. "This is a cease and desist. The HOA filed a complaint with the city. The pool violates neighborhood aesthetics, and until further review, you're not allowed to operate." I accepted the paper and immediately recognized the issue. The formatting was sloppy, the font inconsistent. The letterhead from the city planning office. Crooked and pixelated, but the real red flag. The signature at the bottom, Miguel Alvarez, who I had coffee with just last week. He helped me navigate the zoning process himself. "You forged a city letter." She flinched, then covered it with another smug smile. "It's not forged. It's preemptive documentation. The city hasn't caught up yet." That was a new one. "Ma'am," I said, "you're trespassing on my property. Kindly leave. You'll regret this. I speak for the neighborhood. You don't belong here." She spun around dramatically and marched off, cell phone already in hand. 40 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. 2 deputies stepped out. Karen was right behind them, beaming like a war general arriving with reinforcements. "There he is," she pointed at me, "operating a commercial pool without community approval." The older deputy raised an eyebrow. "Sir, what's going on?" I calmly walked them into the office I built next to the pool. Brand new drywall, state-of-the-art filtration dashboard, and, importantly, a locked filing drawer with everything they needed. I handed over the certified land deed, my business license, print out of the zoning approval, and a signed congratulatory email from Miguel Alvarez himself. They reviewed the documents, while Karen hovered, arms crossed. The deputy looked at her flatly. "Ma'am, this property is 100% private. Not under HOA jurisdiction. But it affects our view. It lowers property value." He ignored her. "If I were you," he added, folding the fake letter, "I'd be very careful. Forging government documents is a criminal offense." Karen paled. "I didn't forge anything. I was given that by someone on the board." Final twist, a stranger in the shadows. As they walked her back to her car, I noticed something strange. Across the street, parked just past the HOA's hedges, sat a black SUV, tinted windows, engine idling. Then, slowly, a man stepped out, mid-40s, tailored suit, sunglasses, and took a long look at my Blue Haven sign. He tapped something on his phone, then got back in and drove off. Something about him didn't sit right. Karen, fake letter and all, wasn't working alone, and this wasn't about a pool anymore. I thought the first run-in with Karen was just the desperate power grab of a nosy neighbor. But the next morning, when I pulled up to Blue Haven to unlock the gate, I was greeted not by sunshine but by signs. Dozens of them, picket signs, flyers, duct-taped to fences, even one nailed to my freshly painted office door. Illegal pool, unsafe, shut it down. No commercial bow scenes in residential zones. Not in our backyard. And just behind the chain-link gate stood a crowd, at least 15 residents. Mostly retirees, standing shoulder to shoulder, arms crossed. Right in the center was Karen, holding a bullhorn and barking instructions like a dictator leading a coup. "This isn't just about the pool," she shouted to the others. "This is about our way of life. He's threatening our neighborhood." The others murmured in agreement, some raising signs, some filming me like I was the intruder. I calmly unlocked the gate and stepped through. "Morning," I said to no one in particular. "You're all welcome to visit during open hours." Once we open, Karen stormed toward me, bullhorn now silent but eyes ablaze. "You're making a mistake showing up today. We had a private HOA vote this morning, and we've officially filed a neighborhood grievance. You're operating on contested land." "Contested?" I raised an eyebrow. "I own it, Karen. I have the deed. You'll need to prove that again. The city zoning office is re-examining the boundary markers. You might be overstepping." Overstepping. I had the permits, the survey maps. Everything was clear. But before I could respond to more squad cars pulled up. Lights on, sirens off. Karen's smug expression returned instantly. "Ah, right on time," she purred. "You won't be so confident this time." This time, the officers weren't from the sheriff's department, they were city police. Called for a potential commercial zoning dispute. One of them, Officer Dana Marshall, stepped forward. Clipboard in hand. "We received a complaint that this property may be violating residential boundary lines," she said. "Do you have proof of ownership and approved permits?" I took a deep breath and nodded. "Yes, officer. I keep it in my office." The office confrontation inside. I handed over the full documentation once again, the certified deed, business license, permit stamps, and the signed surveyor's report showing the lot was distinctly outside Willow Ridge HOA jurisdiction. She reviewed each carefully, checked signatures, then radioed something quietly to her partner. "Everything here checks out," she finally said, looking up. "Your permits are valid, and the business is legal." I almost smiled, until she added, "However, someone submitted an alternate zoning map to the city registrar this morning, with new boundary lines, claiming this lot is part of the HOAS LATEST annexation plan." I blinked. "That's not possible. Annexation was denied a year ago." "Well," she said carefully, "someone submitted it. It's under pending review." Climax. The mysterious signature. I asked to see the submission. She showed me a scan, the map, freshly drawn in digital ink. The name at the bottom. M. Alvarez, city planner. No. That couldn't be. Miguel approved my build personally. "That's a forgery," I told her. "I'll contact him directly." "You should," she said. "Because if it's not, they might actually delay your opening." As the officers walked out, Karen gave me a smug little wave. "I told you this wasn't over. You built a business on land that doesn't belong to you." Final twist. Miguel's voicemail. Lee dialed Miguel the second they left. Straight to voicemail, but just before the beep, I heard something strange in the background, a second voice whispering something, double quotes, ... They single quotes, "On to us." Then the line cut. The voicemail from Miguel haunted me all day. "They're on to us." It was his voice, muffled, shaky, but he hadn't returned my calls since, and the signature on that forged zoning map. It was either fake, or he was in trouble. Still, I had more pressing concerns because when I pulled up to Blue Haven the next morning, the gates were chained shut with a thick industrial padlock, and attached to the bars, a notice, bright red ink, bold letters. "Facility closed by order of compliance." But there was no department seal, no reference number, no contact info. Just a phone number written in permanent marker. And standing right there, arms folded, like a gargoyle guarding a temple, was none other than Corin. "Good morning," she said, voice syrupy. "Looks like you've got a problem." "That's funny," I said. "The city doesn't hang padlocks without issuing a citation first." "Oh, but they did. You just didn't get the message. Probably buried under those so-called permits you keep bragging about." I called the number on the sign. It rang twice, then connected to a man with a flat, robotic tone claiming to be from Zoning Enforcement Unit 14. "Your structure is under review. Entry is prohibited during investigative status. Any violation will result in criminal trespassing." But when I asked for a badge number or case ID, he hung up. "Fake. I've called the actual city inspector before," I said to Karen. "They don't operate like this." She smirked. "Maybe it's time they changed the rules." Calling the real authorities, I contacted Officer Dana Marshall, who came out again within the hour. She examined the padlock, the sign, and listened to my full account. This doesn't match our process at all, she confirmed. This is impersonation. Someone's trying to look official without actually being so. That's a felony, right? I asked. Yep, and it smells like harassment too. Karen kept her distance during the exchange but kept filming us from the sidewalk like she was collecting evidence for a Netflix documentary about saving the suburbs. Dana took the sign for evidence and confirmed she'd launch a report. But I wasn't done for the day. Climax. Midnight visitor that night. I returned to Blue Haven to do a final walkthrough, with the padlock now legally removed and a new chain I installed myself. I locked up tight and headed to my trailer parked out back, a temporary setup I used during construction, now doubling as a second office. At 12:47 a.m., I woke to a sound, a faint metallic clang then. A low creak. I sat up, heart pounding. Someone was inside the pool facility. I slipped out of the trailer, barefoot on gravel, and circled toward the back maintenance door. A flashlight flickered faintly under the doorframe. Then a click. Equipment moving. Drawers being searched. I had motion sensors installed just last week. Silently, I opened my phone app and activated the floodlights. The yard lit up like a football stadium. The door burst open and a figure sprinted out. Hoodie drawn up, something silver tucked under their arm. I chased them. Hey! They leaped the fence, cutting through the woods behind the lot. Too fast to catch. But not fast enough to avoid the camera above the gate, which caught their full face as they turned back for a split second. Not Karen, not a neighborhood teen. It was the man from the black SUV. Ending twist. What was stone? I checked the equipment room. Nothing looked missing at first. Filters intact, chemicals untouched. But when I opened the control cabinet, my heart dropped. The entire security hard drive was gone. Years of footage, permit approvals, contractor interviews. Even the video of Karen forging that document on her own printer 2 weeks ago, gone, erased. The next morning, I didn't go to Blue Haven. I drove straight to the city planning department downtown after the theft of my security hard drive. And that disturbing chase through the woods. I needed answers, and I was done waiting for Miguel Alvarez to return my calls. He was the only person who could confirm whether the zoning signatures were real, or part of something bigger. The building was quiet for a weekday. I asked the front desk clerk if Miguel was in. She glanced up, confused. Miguel Alvarez. He's out. Out where? Sick leave, she said. Effective 3 days ago. My stomach tightened. Do you know when he'll be back? No idea. His cases are being handled by interim staff. Can I speak to whoever took over? His files. She made a quick call, then directed me down the hall. Room 412. Ask for Mr. Slater. Inside the office of Mr. Slater, I stepped into room 412. The man behind the desk was mid-40s, thin, precise, with square glasses and a navy blue tie that seemed a size too tight. You must be the pool guy, he said, not even bothering to look up from his tablet. I prefer business owner, but yeah, he smirked. You're here about the contested zoning lines. I'm here because someone forged Miguel Alvarez's signature and locked me out of my own property. He finally looked up. Nobody forged anything. The annexation map was resubmitted, based on updated boundary data. And it was signed digitally by Miguel Alvarez. I leaned forward. I spoke to Miguel a week ago. He approved my project personally. There was no annexation plan. This is manufactured. Slater slid a document across the table. Zoning Review Addendum. Willow Ridge Annexation Reinstatement. Miguel's name was digitally stamped at the bottom, but the time-stamped dated 2 days after the midnight break-in at my facility. Convenient timing, I muttered. The HOA brought forward compelling new documentation, Slater said coolly. Survey maps? Resident petitions. Everything looked in order. You mean everything looked expensive? He gave a tight smile. We don't deal in motives, Mr. Daniels. Only paperwork. A sudden visitor as I left Slater's office, seething. A voice caught me in the hallway. Hey, are you here about Miguel? I turned. It was a young intern, clipboard in hand, looking nervously over her shoulder. Yeah, why? Don't trust Slater, she said quietly. He's not supposed to be handling Miguel's files. The zoning reassignment came in from an external courier, not our system. Miguel didn't submit it. So the signature's fake. Didn't say that, she whispered. I'm just saying. Miguel never left sick. He was in his office 3 days ago. Then he vanished. No goodbye, no transfer file. Before I could ask more, a heavy door slammed down the hall. The intern's eyes widened. I have to go. I never talked to you. She slipped away before I could catch her name. Climax, a new map, a big lie back home. I examined the updated zoning map Slater had given me, and that's when I noticed it. A thin dashed line added near the edge of Blue Haven, reclassifying my lot as part of Community Zone B, but that designation didn't exist in the original city code. I knew because I'd studied every single page during construction. They were fabricating new zones, paper trails, even departments, and someone was covering for Karen's HOA, maybe even funded by it. Ending twist, a hidden email draft I logged into my backup server, the one Karen's people hadn't touched, and searched my old messages with Miguel. One draft stood out, unsent, dated 4 days ago, written in haste. They want me to bury the permits. Slater isn't who he says he is. If anything happens, look at the HOA board's donors. The message ended mid-sentence, but attached to it was a PDF, a Willow Ridge, HOA donor list, end at the top. K. Billings, $25,000, Slater $18,000. I didn't sleep that night between the forged documents, Miguel's vanishing act, and Slater's creepy precision. The walls were clearly closing in. But that final puzzle piece, the donor list buried in Miguel's draft email, changed everything. Karen Billings wasn't just the face of the HOA, she was funding it and Slater. He wasn't just a bureaucrat, he was a plant. They were buying their way through the city with fake maps, fake inspectors, and now, potentially, ownership of my land. But what shook me most was a line at the bottom of the HOA's digital minutes, a file I pulled from a community board website. Archive. Miguel must have flagged. Motion. Finalize vote to repurpose 1845 Blanton Road Blue Haven lot for Community Wellness Center and walking path. Grant of title transfer pending. Status. Unanimously passed. They weren't just sabotaging me, they were planning to erase me. Crashing the HOA meeting. Karen's monthly HOA meeting was supposed to be private, open only to Willow Ridge residents, but after some quick digging, I found the venue, the Willow Ridge Community Center. Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. I showed up at 6:27 in a blazer and jeans, holding a leather binder under my arm and one backup copy of the donor list in my jacket pocket, just in case. Inside, about 20 people sat in rows facing a low stage. Karen stood at the front beside a projector, flipping through slides about community beautification and future wellness investments. And of course, she said brightly, we must address the issue of unauthorized structures on our extended property. I stepped through the double doors and said loud enough for the whole room. That's strange. Karen, you didn't build anything, you just stole mine. Every head turned. Her smile froze. This meeting is for Willow Ridge residents only. She snapped. Oh, don't worry. I brought ID and evidence. Exposing the web, I walked to the front and opened the binder. Here's my certified deed. My permits. A sworn surveyor's map showing your HOA stops 60 feet short of my fence. She laughed nervously. This is not the time or place. And here, I said, pulling out the HOA donor list, is a copy of your little fundraising roster. Care to explain why the same Slater who approved your fraudulent annexation just so happens to be your second highest donor? The room gasped. Whispers broke out. One older man stood up from the back row. Karen, is that true? She tried to talk over the murmurs. These are wild accusations. He's a community volunteer. He's not even listed on city staff until 2 weeks ago, I interrupted. Check the employment logs. He's a ghost who showed up to rewrite maps and steal land. Climax. The call that changed everything just as things were spiraling. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked up cautiously. Hello, it's Miguel. Don't speak. His voice was low, like he was outside. Wind rushed in the background. They tried to shut me up. I'm out of town. But I sent everything to your lawyer's email. Legal descriptions, timestamps, and my affidavit. You were right. Are you safe? For now? But if Karen finds out I called you, the line went dead. Ending twist. A surprise alley back inside. Karen had lost her cool. She was yelling, now, papers flying, claiming the documents were fake and that I had manipulated city staff. But before she could launch into a tirade, a voice called from the back. That's enough. It was Officer Dana Marshall. She walked into the room holding a printed affidavit and city envelope in hand. I got the same file your lawyer did, she said to me, then turned to Karen. And it's more than enough for an investigation. Karen's face turned pale. We'll be seeing each other again very soon. The affidavit from Miguel sent shockwaves through the HOA board. By the next day, Karen had gone silent. No smug videos. No cryptic flyers. No fake inspectors snooping around. For the first time in weeks, Blue Haven was quiet. Too quiet. I knew Karen wasn't done. She didn't just back down. She recalculated. And the moment I saw a suspicious white truck idling by the rear access road near the water filtration tanks, I knew the next attack had begun. A notice from the EPA. 2 days later, I received a certified letter from Environmental Review and Preservation Committee subject. Cease operations, suspected groundwater contamination. Recent reports suggest improper chemical disposal at your facility may be causing ecological harm to the surrounding Willow Creek wetlands. Until full inspection, your permit is hereby suspended. There was no case number. No field agent name. No agency badge. Just a reference to an anonymous community complaint and a photocopy of a fluid sample report. But I recognized the address from the test results. The lot right behind Blue Haven, where runoff drains into the creek. I called the city's real environmental division. The woman on the phone was blunt. We don't even have a report from that region this quarter. It was all fake again. Only this time, it wasn't about paperwork, it was about pollution. Setting a trap that night, I parked my truck out of sight and set up 2 wireless trail cams, one in the tree line behind Blue Haven, the other near the drainage ditch beside the maintenance road. Then I waited at 3:13 a.m. My phone buzzed with a motion alert. Camera 1, a man in coveralls holding a canister. Camera 2, a second figure pouring a dark liquid into the storm drain. They moved fast. Coordinated, not random vandals. This was a crew, hired, and I had every second of it on HD video. The confrontation by 10 a.m. I had the footage packaged and ready. I marched into the Willow Ridge HOA building, unannounced, and walked straight into their open meeting. Karen was seated at the front, pretending to take minutes with a serene smile on her face. "Oh look," she said sweetly. "Still trespassing, I see." "Not this time," I said. "I came with evidence." I placed my phone on the projector stand and hit play. The room gasped. Karen's smile twitched. The video showed her goons, same men who'd helped padlock my gates, in plain view, dumping something black and oily into the runoff ditch. "What you're seeing," I said calmly, "is a felony. Pollution, with intent to frame a business. That's absurd. Funny how your complaint to the fake EPA line came just hours after this footage was captured." She stood up, knocking her water bottle off the table. "This is Dr. T's manipulating video. I've never seen those men before in my life." I walked up to her, pulled out another piece of paper, a payment log I'd intercepted from a mutual contractor. "Except this guy, Todd Filkins, cashed a check from your husband's lawn care business, just last week, for special maintenance services." The room turned on her. Ending twist. A legal firestorm begins. Karine shrieked about defamation and smear campaigns. But no one was listening anymore. Not even her board. By evening, my lawyer had served her with a cease and desist. And Officer Dana Marshall had launched a formal criminal investigation into her environmental sabotage. Even worse for her. Miguel's sworn statement, now fully released, proved Karen and Slater had signed off on a fake city department that didn't exist on any municipal record. Their house of cards was beginning to collapse. But Karen, she wasn't going down alone. After the environmental stunt blew up in her face, Karen vanished for a while. No HOA meetings, no new threats, no court summons. But I knew better. People like Karen don't disappear. They reload. And sure enough, a week later, I received a message from an unknown number. No text, just a link. Against my better judgment, I clicked. It was a page from a conspiracy blog. Title, Shady Businessman, Hiding Troubled Past, How a Pool Mogul Stole from His Own Investors. They were talking about me. The article was filled with half-truths. An old failed startup from my 20s. A business partner who took off with the funds. And a civil lawsuit I'd already settled and been cleared from years ago. Karen had hired someone to dig up every dusty detail of my past and spin it. She wanted to ruin my reputation. But this time, she picked the wrong investigator. Meeting the PA a few days later, I was at Blue Haven fixing a broken light post when a gray sedan pulled into the parking lot. Out stepped a tall man in a wrinkled suit, holding a leather satchel and a cigarette between his fingers. "You're Daniel Reed?" he asked. "Depends who's asking." "Name's Jack Sloan." Licensed pie. I was hired to find dirt on you. Thought you should know who actually has dirt on who. I raised an eyebrow. Why the sudden conscience? He handed me a folder because I like knowing when I'm being played. Karen didn't tell me this was about land theft. She claimed you were a scammer squatting on HOA property. But once I started pulling records, let's just say I found someone else's skeletons instead. I opened the folder. Inside were copies of emails, financial records, and surveillance photos. Jack pointed to one in particular, a wire transfer receipt from 6 months ago. Karen's husband, Greg Billings, he's been shifting money from HOA reserves into a side LLC registered to a fake landscaping business. Guess who approved the expenses? Karen. Bingo. But that wasn't the end of it. A bigger crime. Sloan handed me a second envelope. I also traced one of the trucks involved in the chemical dump, registered under a shell company owned by Get, this Slater's cousin, same Slater who signed off on your annexation. I felt the pieces falling into place. She built an entire network just to steal a pool. Not just a pool, Sloan said. The city is rezoning that area in 6 months. She was trying to lock down the land before it gets valued 10 times higher. Your place was the last obstacle. So she framed me, forged maps, paid off city staff. And now, she's under 2 open investigations. But the real nail in her coffin. The HOA doesn't know any of this. Climax, the emergency HOA, meeting with Sloan's blessing. I called an emergency HOA gathering. This time, I didn't just show up with a folder, I came with a digital projector, a timeline, and a sworn witness. Jack Sloan stood beside me as I revealed every wire transfer, every fake invoice, every surveillance photo. Karen didn't just lie to you. I told the room. She stole from you. Gasps, whispers, angry murmurs, and then, applause. Even the board members she once controlled began turning on her, demanding answers. But Karen, nowhere in sight. Ending twist. Karen flees but leaves one last clue later that night. I returned home to find a typed letter taped to my front gate. You may think you've won, Daniel. But some property lines go deeper than ink and law. Let's see what happens when the city loses its memory. Attached was a blueprint, not of Blue Haven but of the city archives building downtown, with a date circled in red. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. The blueprint left on my gate wasn't just a threat, it was a warning. Karen was planning something big, reckless, and most likely illegal. I studied the city archive building map she'd left. The red-circled room was the deed vault, the physical record vault that held certified copies of land ownership dating back decades. My deed to Blue Haven was among them. The implication was crystal clear. If she couldn't erase me legally, she'd do it literally. The stakeout taught 2:40 p.m. the next day. I stood in the parking lot across from the city records building, leaning against my truck, sunglasses on, heart pounding. I wasn't alone. Officer Dana Marshall sat in her cruiser, at the far end, waiting for my signal, and beside me, arms folded. Amused was Jack Sloan. The pie hood exposed Karen's entire fraud ring. You sure she's bold enough to actually try this? He asked. Karen doesn't see the line anymore, I replied. She just sees what's in her way. At exactly 2:57 p.m., a silver Lexus pulled up. Karen stepped out, dressed head to toe in black, a messenger bag on one shoulder and what looked like city staff ID clipped to her jacket. She walked through the archive's back entrance, like she'd done it 100 times. Caught in the act, I messaged Dana. She's inside, go. Within minutes, security footage inside the building showed her, heading straight for the records department, past the main desk, and into the restricted archives section. The hallway cameras caught her inserting a forged badge into a digital lock, one she somehow knew. The override code for Dot. She entered the vault and inside. She began pulling files, deed logs, parcel ID folders, anything connected to 1845 Blanton Road, my property. But she didn't stop there. She reached into her bag and pulled out a metal flask and a small lighter. Going live. What Karen didn't know was that the local news team had already been tipped off by Sloan about the HOA fraud scandal. A reporter and cameraman were outside the city building to do a segment on the investigation. They were live when the building's fire alarms screamed. Security guards flooded the hallway. Smoke began leaking from under the vault door. Karen burst out of the archives with ashes on her sleeves and a half-burned folder clutched to her chest. She ran straight into Officer Dana. Karen Billings, you are under arrest for arson, destruction of city property, attempted fraud, and obstruction of justice. The cameras caught everything: Karen's face, twisted with disbelief, the handcuffs, the fire crew storming past her to put out the blaze. "Can't arrest me," she shrieked. "I am Willow Ridge. I own this town." The camera zoomed in on the twisted irony as the smoke curled behind her. The aftermath: the news ran with the headline that night: HOA president arrested for arson in land fraud scheme, deed vault targeted. Karen's HOA board formally dissolved. 2 days later, the city pressed charges. Greg Billings, her husband, turned state's witness to save himself from indictment, exposing even more embezzlement and bribery. Slater was fired, disbarred, and fined into oblivion. And me. I was officially recognized by the city for resisting fraudulent annexation and aiding an active investigation. The mayor called Blue Haven a symbol of community integrity. Final twist: a new Signum month later, with the chaos behind me, I walked to the pool gate and mounted a new sign. It read, "Private property owner operated, no HOA interference. Trespassers will be televised." Just beneath it, a small plaque from Channel 9 News. As seen in the arrest of Karen Billings, June 6, 2025. Jack Sloan passed by and chuckled. "Think she'll try again? She's going to need a new alias first." We both laughed, because this land, it was mine, and no HOA queen, fake inspector, or smoky blueprint was ever taking it from me again.